But then the creepiest part of it was the thing that we didn't hear that ended up on the recording, and that was the man's voice afterwards. There's a man's voice afterwards, and it sounds like he says, "I told you not to make a move." And it's echoey, it's distant and echoey, so it's very thick. The voice is thick just because of how much echo there is on it, but that's to us what we feel like it says. And I'll never forget that experience. And
that's
that
what
feeling.
You're chasing, bro? We need a therapist. Welcome to Creepalachia. This is the most Halloween horrific episode we've ever done. This is only our second Halloween in operation, but what better way than to have professionals in the industry come in and tell me about how they grew their YouTube channel to a massive following to do this for a living. Paranormal Quest is the show, and my man Ryan Zacherl and Jason McKinney are in the studio today. It's evolved over the years, but this is 2/4, I guess, of the original group.
Yep.
So thank y'all for being here.
Thanks for having us, JD. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And Jason's an official friend of the show, because when you come twice, then you're official friend of the show. But we're friends anyway, right?
That just means I have to get back in here. Then.
I know.
I need to come back.
Oh, anytime. So let's introduce yourselves. Ryan, first, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a little town in the northern panhandle of West Virginia called Moundsville. That was where I was born in Wheeling, and then my family lived in Moundsville. I lived in Moundsville the first 18 years of my life. Grew up in that tiny little town that was basically made by a famous haunted location when it was in operation. It was the West Virginia Penitentiary was one of the most major employers in the area. But I was born in 1994, so I was only alive for 1 year before the prison closed down. So I don't really have any of those stories of going by the prison and seeing the inmates or anything. But yeah, I grew up with this giant Gothic prison in my hometown. And it was when I was a teenager, I really started to become more fascinated by it and was kind of drawn in by it. And then that's where I met Jason. That's where I met Dave. That's where I met Steve. And it kind of evolved from there. It was really just, we always joke and say we met in prison.
Sure.
And so it was that proximity to that prison, which I really didn't pay any mind for the first 13 years of my life. But when I was 14, it kind of drew me in and never let me go.
Heck yeah. What year did y'all meet?
That was 09, February that year.
February of 09. Jason was 13 years old. I was 14 years old.
Nice.
In 09. And yeah, we were just two young teenagers, fascinated and excited by the paranormal and by the history of this prison.
Heck yeah.
It was the hook in the mouth.
It was.
Was there any instance of hey, we need to video some ghost hunts? What was the initial spark of figuring this thing out?
So it started really in 2008 when I started hanging out at the West Virginia Penitentiary before I met Jason. I came to help build, and I was a volunteer, a young teenage volunteer, and I helped build the haunted attraction there for the first month. It was September was when I first actually started volunteering there, and then October, the haunted attraction went by. November, after 2 months of hanging out with a lady named Lori O'Neill, who kept telling me, you need to come and spend one of the nights because she did all of the overnight paranormal investigations. When a team booked, she was the person that was there. She was always by herself in the gift shop. And she said, come and hang out one night and see what this place is like in the dark. And so I did in November of 2008. And later that month, I met Dave because his mom, Polly, had taken the famous Shadow Man photograph in May of 2004.
Okay, yeah.
Which is, infamous. It's
nice.
One of the most famous paranormal photographs to ever been captured in the field. And so she was like a celebrity. Still, sometimes we forget that she's our friend. It's like she feels like a celebrity to us because of what she captured.
Sure.
And so I just kind of this little starstruck teenager started following Polly around, and Dave always drove her because Polly doesn't drive. So Dave would come with her. And that's kind of how he got started investigating. From the age of 10, I think, is what he told me. He would drive her places and they would investigate together. Mother, son, also some other family would come with them. But they came to the prison and I followed him around for that first ghost hunt. And then the next year we came back. Another public ghost hunt happened. Polly and Dave were there. And after hanging out with him again Polly basically invited me to join Mountaineer Paranormal, which was her paranormal group at the time.
Oh, cool.
And so I met Dave that way. Steve was already a daytime tour guide at the prison. And so between Dave, Steve, and I, of course, I met Jason in February of 2009, but it was really Dave, Steve, and I that had the idea to start filming our paranormal investigations. And we did the first one at the prison, and then we started doing other local stuff. And by the time we really had the first video done, we had some people at a local university, West Liberty University, just above Wheeling, who had asked us, their television station channel, their broadcasting program had their own TV station. And we were kind of in talks with them to put some of these videos on that TV station.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that fell through, we didn't know what to do with the videos. And so Dave, having been, at the time obsessed with the internet, he said, well, there's this website called YouTube. Why don't we upload them to YouTube? And that was in early 2011 was when we uploaded our first YouTube video.
That was before Sam and Colby, right?
Oh, yeah.
Before. Like, y'all are OGs, son.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think the only people that I remember being on YouTube that uploaded paranormal investigations at that time that still do it is us and the Foreman brothers.
Let's see. Well, Taps was like on, what was it, Discovery Channel? I can't remember. But I think that was early 2000s.
Yeah.
But that's all. And then they had the Ghost Hunter show and a couple other things. But
yeah.
How fun, man. Well, are those early videos, is it the same channel that it's on, or is it a different channel?
So we did have to re-upload those old videos. Right now, our channel says we joined in 2012, and that was because we went through this whole process. I don't know if years and years ago, there was this thing that they were like YouTube management companies. They were like YouTube production companies that would come in, you'd make an agreement with them, and they would market you, and they would take a cut of your revenue once you were monetized. And so we did that for a couple of months, but once we signed the deal, we couldn't get out of it. And they weren't doing anything to help us. They were just taking our money.
Oh, no.
So we basically, at that point, we decided we were going to completely delete that channel and restart, and we started by uploading all the videos back on it. So they were re-uploaded in 2012. But yeah, they're still up there. I hate to watch them.
Nice.
It's more of a comedy situation to watch those old videos now.
It's fun though, because you can watch your growth as a storyteller.
Oh, for sure.
Was the original name Paranormal Quest?
Yeah, the original name was Paranormal Quest. I actually have on my personal YouTube channel. It's unlisted, but I have a video from July of 2010 of me as a 15 or 16-year-old kid. And I am in the parking lot of Steve's gym, because he owned a gym and fitness center in Moundsville. And I was in the back parking lot, and I was telling everyone, get ready, because we have a new project coming. It's going to be called Paranormal Quest. And, it's just me, this little teenage boy, talking about Paranormal Quest all the way back in July of 2010.
Heck yeah, man.
So...
And fast forward, man, what's your subscriber rate? I was looking this morning. Ain't near 500,000 or something like that? I can't even...
16 years later, we're coming up on 300,000.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact number right now.
Heck yeah, man.
It's getting close.
It's, where would you say your biggest demographic? Do you find that your demographics is in a certain region, or is it all over, would you say?
Mostly the United States. I mean, we do have a huge audience in Australia. And that's a huge thanks to our friends in Australia with Adelaide Haunted Horizons tours. They've brought us over to Australia twice now. And so we've been able to go over there and meet with some people that follow the channel in Australia and investigate so many cool places throughout Australia, mostly in South Australia and Victoria, but just some amazing asylums and prisons in Australia that are just as creepy as what we have here. Some of them more, like Airedale, or as they say, Aradale Lunatic Asylum. That place is one of the creepiest places I have ever been to.
Really?
Yes.
I have to look this up, because I'm just stuck in the hills. I'm like, man, there's just so much here. I'm just going to stay in this place. But there is so much going on around the world.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Y'all get to travel and do that. So Jason, you gave a backstory on your last episode. Y'all check out the Moundsville episode where my man tells all the penitentiary stories. It's so much fun. But give me a quick rundown on your life and where you grew up. And it was in the Moundsville area too, right?
Well, actually,
Or did you end up there later? I can't remember.
Ended up there later.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So I grew up like Ryan and yourself, native West Virginia. But I grew up over kind of near Fayetteville. And then, kind of like Ryan already touched on, I kind of started investigating a couple of years before my first, about a year and a half before my trip to Moundsville in 2009 when Ryan and I met.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just the hook in the mouth. And well, for all of us, but I just fell in love with the prison. And so, because up until that time, I'd been just doing little places, locally, cemeteries and places that were free that you could get access to.
Sure.
And then, befriending Ryan, Dave, and Steve, every year after that, I would make it up to the penitentiary once, if not twice. We'd stay the night and, knock around in the prison and, do some recordings. And then I believe it was 2010 or 2011, started occasionally filming with the guys, just helping out. I remember that's when y'all just had, like, for the audio, just a big boom mic.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, whenever I was able to show up, I was like, I was the boom mic guy. So I'd hold the boom mic, try and keep it out of the frame, and of course, now everything's much, much simplified now with the lavs and everything else. But so, periodically over the years, like say, would join the guys, film with them. And then I think it was January of 2017, the guys officially invited me to come along, and join the channel. And the first official Paranormal Quest that I joined the fellows for was the Bel Air House in Bel Air, Ohio, which is right across the river from Moundsville.
Interesting. What is this place?
That's kind of an interesting question. I mean, it's the history of it. I mean, it was always just owned by, what's the family's name? I mean,
oh gosh, this is I'm gonna have to recollect.
Is this town called Bel Air?
Yeah, Bel Air, Ohio.
Okay,
small little hamlet town. I mean, it's kind of a long story, but it seems like the history has changed a little bit over the years with that place. But it was just, I don't know. It just came into the possession of this lady, Kristen's her name, and she started, advertising it as a haunted destination. And next thing you know, it was featured on some of the major TV shows and just kind of blew up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like you hear about it too much anymore, but
is that like a mansion, old mansion, or?
That's right.
It's just, I mean, it's not really a mansion size. It's more of like a 4-bedroom house, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jacob Hetherington was the original owner who built it and had 2 kids. And there's stories of the daughter passing away and her brother doing seances in the house to try and communicate with his sister.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the haunting, the ghost stories began, so to speak. And it kind of evolved from there. When Kristen moved in, she had a lot of crazy experiences that she felt were darker. So she wrote a book. The first book she wrote about it, I think, was called 1699 Belmont Street, A Portal to Hell, which was the address of the house, and then
nice.
A Portal to Hell. And I remember when we first went to the Bel Air house, 2010, I want to say it was. Maybe it was before that. But yeah, it was not even for filming. It was just to go with Mountaineer Paranormal. And it was, we got there and there was all sorts of stories about, and Kristen would tell everyone when they showed up what they should do for spiritual protection to protect against the darker energies of the house. And we really didn't have anything crazy happen except for me falling through the hole in the floor where the register vent should be because she was doing some renovations on the house. And
that's a good time.
I have a bad habit of sticking my leg in holes in the floor and almost ending up in the basement.
Sure. That's that northern West Virginia, and that's the problem. But also too, I love that you enunciate so well. I've tried my whole life to do it, and I just can't do it. So that's how I can tell northern West Virginia from southern. And that makes sense. You're from Fayette County, so
people always tell me that when I say certain things, they can hear my West Virginia come out. But from the time I was 13, 14 years old, I was taking, broadcasting classes, so I learned how to enunciate when I speak. And so it's just something that and it's second nature now.
It worked out. It worked out. Well, how cool. So. Was it officially the portal to hell? Did you figure it out? Like, did you go in the bathroom and like Satan's brushing his teeth? And you're like, this is crazy.
Well, he was using mouthwash.
Okay. Like, there he is. Wow.
I mean, we had some creepy stuff happen there in the multiple investigations that we had. Strange things moving that we couldn't explain, footsteps that we heard, but it was weird. We kind of came up with this strange hypothesis that we feel like Kristen is a huge part of the paranormal activity of that house, because we've never had a very extreme experience in the house.
Sure.
Unless she was there. And that was when crazy things would kick off. And when we were there by ourselves without her, most of the time it was just quiet, dead silent for most of it. You'd have, strange sounds and things you couldn't explain like that, but nothing crazy. Like I remember the first experience I had in the Bel Air house, it was just her and I met her there. And I remember hearing it was like heavy booted footsteps coming down the stairs when we were just in the front entry room and nobody else was in the house.
Right.
So I don't really know exactly what it is about Kristen that kicks up the activity in the house, or whether the activity is attached to her. I have no idea, but whenever we're there just by ourselves, we hardly ever have any experiences. But
gotcha. So when you go in, do you go in just like, because how I do it, I go in believing everything someone tells me, because that's just what I want to do. I've only personally had 2 experiences, which we can get into in a little bit, where I'm like, okay, that was different. But I haven't went near the amount of places that you all have been into. So I'm just curious, do you go in there with a kind of a healthy skeptic mindset, or how would you say?
For the most part, really, I love to hear the ghost stories that people tell and give them the benefit of the doubt, because we have our own stories that if we just told someone, they would say, there's no way, that's crazy. You imagined that, you were hallucinating, people, they're so unbelievable, but we know that they happened to us. So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt and keep an open mind when I'm listening to the stories, and then try and get that to happen to me. And just because if it doesn't happen to us doesn't mean that it didn't happen to them. But like Jason always has said many times throughout our investigations, it's good to keep an open mind, but not so open your brain falls out.
Right.
So there's certain things that you can, give people the benefit of the doubt and keep an open mind and believe what they're saying to be true in their own experience. But then there's also some things that we've experienced and heard and stories we've been told where we are, like it just, there's no way. Or immediately as soon as you hear the story, you know exactly what it was they experienced, because you're in the building, you hear the sounds, that sort of thing.
Sure.
But yeah, I love the ghost story aspect of paranormal investigating, because it's such a fascinating field, because it's so unknown and unexplained.
Oh, yeah.
So I try to keep an open mind.
Do you remember the first time where you had some kind of, like, what initially drawn you to the paranormal life?
I have a good one, and that's my story that people wouldn't believe, but I'll let Jason tell his first.
Okay, let's go, Jason.
A lot here.
I don't think we got into it last time. I think we just talked about the convicts. I don't remember if we got to paranormal, so I'm curious.
Yeah, so I think, my earliest paranormal experience, I was 4 or 5. I was sitting in my family's living room, and I was kind of facing my dad, and behind him was the entranceway into like the kitchen and dining room area. And, again, like I say, I was 4 years old, but I have very vague memory of this. But I just remember looking at my dad, and behind him in the kitchen doorway, there's this man, and he's looking at me and just looking now, like no emotions. He wasn't like smiling or whatever. And moments later, he kind of started to turn and walk down the hall towards my room. And as much as I hate to say it, he just vanished in front of me, But before he turned, I said to my dad, I was like, Daddy, there's a man in the kitchen. Of course, that freaks my dad out. So he turned around real quick and, what man, and he asked me to try and describe him. So, later on, started watching, some of the TV shows and, Paranormal State, Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, whatever, with my family, and started to think, maybe there's something to this, and I'm recalling, that guy that I had seen. I thought, I want to look into it. And then, started investigating locally. But then that was kind of, I guess, the initial catalyst. Sure. But what really kind of propelled my interest, so to speak, was, again, going back to February 2009 and spending the night at the prison. That was just, And like I say, and maybe I mentioned it last time to a point, but it's like chasing the dragon, because part of it is wanting to experience the same feeling that I felt as soon as I walked into the penitentiary, and just the unequivocally, I mean, there was no doubt in my mind that, they're there, and kind of applying that same fascination and curiosity to anywhere we go. But like Ryan was saying too, going in with an open mind, and, we also try our best to always be conscientious of debunking things, in certain claims. And, I don't know anything from someone saying, oh, in the basement, maybe it's like a lived in basement and they report a lot of unusual activity. Well, we go down there and we use our EMF meters and things and find that there's a huge amount of EMF in that area, electromagnetic energy. It's like, well, this doesn't fully explain it away, but this could be, they're being subjected to these high levels of EMF. They could be experiencing these weird, feelings like they're not alone. So, kind of keeping that level of awareness always in your back pocket too. And numerous times that, we've debunked things, something will happen. For example, College Hill Hospital over in Williamson.
I still ain't been. I got to go.
Oh, it's awesome.
Amazing.
It is. And last time we were there with our buddy Dawson Toller, and he has his own channel as well. But we left. I don't want to explain abandonment. I'll let Ryan do that. But it was during our abandonment session that night that we had left, and we left cameras rolling, and we came back and found that one of the doors on like the second or third floor ward just opens on its own, or
closes
on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, our minds are blown, and I was like, oh, hell yeah. We're all just so excited. And it was such a profound thing that we captured, that we thought we captured. We went back to our accommodation, which was actually the doctor's house, old house,
mm-hmm.
to more closely analyze that footage on Ryan's laptop. And then we put two and two together and realized there was some like cracks in some of the windows up there. And at the same time the door closes, you hear this strong gale forced wind. And we realized, it's
mm-hmm.
a draft.
Oh,
and that was one of the biggest letdowns. But it's like, hey, that's part of the game.
Mm-hmm. That's great though. Yeah. That's great that you figured that out. Can you describe, because I know the exact feeling you're talking about, but what is the feeling when that you're chasing, that that they're around?
I've sometimes described it as, it's kind of hard to put into words, but to me, it's almost like walking into a sauna, but there's no heat. Mm-hmm. Like there's no, it's just a pressure. It's a thickness in the air, and the sense of, the awareness of other people nearby. The best way I could describe it is going back, like, for example, that initial night at Moundsville. I just remember that night being in the lobby, and we had came back from the medical unit, and it was just off the charts, full on and full bore activity. And we were about to go back up there, and after our break, and I just remember when I was thinking about up there, when we go back, I could just almost visualize people. There were people everywhere up there, and I just thought, we're going back up to join them.
Mm-hmm. And
it's just it's kind of hard to articulate.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. What about for you, Ryan? What's that feeling?
Yeah, I've been chasing the feeling of my first experience for, at this point, is that 2000, and it was March of 2009, well, 1 month after I met Jason,
mm-hmm.
that was a crazy night in and of itself, by the way. We were chasing noises, banging on the walls, and that's exactly how he described it. It's like you feel like it's crowded, but there's nobody else in the room with you. But the feeling for me that I was chasing was March the 7th of 2009. There was an experience I had where for a split second, I literally was afraid for my life. I thought that someone was trying to kill me and my friend Joe when we were up in the psych ward. We were on an overnight. I was helping Lori, volunteering, and I brought my friend at the time from high school, childhood friend Joe, and I wanted to show him the prison. And so while Lori went to check everybody in and take the tour out on the North Yard for just a few minutes, I said, let's go up to the psych ward. So we go up to the psych ward, And I had just gotten a brand new digital voice recorder for Christmas. I love this. It was the first piece of equipment I'd ever had. And it didn't really record that well. But for me, as this 15-year-old kid, I was obsessed with this voice recorder, but I hadn't used it yet. This was the very first night of the season at the prison because it closes for the winter. So Joe and I went up to the psych ward. I set the recorder in the middle of the floor, and we went and sat in the corner of the big ward room, which is where the inmates would have had beds, and if they got out of control, they could 4-point them, but it was a big ward for the inmates that were considered to be criminally insane. And so we sat up there, and it was only about 1 minute and 45 seconds from the time we sat down, maybe 3 to 4 questions in, we heard a sound that sounded like someone in the room fired off a gun. And it was in this concrete space, so it just reverberated and the walls vibrated. And I don't know if you've heard or fired off a firearm in an enclosed space.
I actually have.
You get that percussive feeling from the sound waves.
It's a whole new level of...
And we felt that. I mean, at least I did. I felt it in my chest, this sound wave hitting me. And the only way I can describe it was it sounded like someone just across the room from us fired off a gun. And it scared us and startled us so bad. In my own experience, I couldn't breathe. People always ask me, well, why didn't you scream? Why weren't you startled? It's like, have you ever been startled so badly that it takes your breath away and you can't make a sound? You just can't catch your air. Mm-hmm. That's the way that it felt. And I sat there in silence with Joe for at least what it felt like 30 seconds, but it was really only maybe 5 seconds until this little 15-year-old mustered the courage to go, is there anybody down there? And there was nothing. It was just silence. And so at that point, I was like, let's get out of here. Joe agreed. I stood up to go grab the recorder out of the middle of the floor. I grabbed it. By the time I turned around, Joe was gone. He was down the stairs. So I ran after him. And it wasn't until we got down to the bottom of the stairs of the psych ward that I realized I caught that whole thing on audio recorder.
Nice.
And so that was the very first piece of paranormal evidence I ever captured. And we analyzed that for weeks. I remember back then in 2009, I had a little flip phone. I had limited text messages. I'd call Joe after school and we'd talk about what we experienced. And we'd use a few text messages here and there when we wanted to spare the 5 cents or whatever it was per text message, 25 cents. And we'd just talk about what we thought it was. And finally, I remember I was in the band room of my high school and Joe texted me and said, I think it was a gunshot. And then it clicked in our brains actually what it was. And it all made sense. And because when you hear the audio recording, you can hear the loud blast. And it's so loud, of course, audio overmodulates, it peaks. But then afterwards, almost immediately you hear what sounds like a piece of plastic and metal hitting the floor, which then it registered in our brain. That could have been the shell ejecting and landing on the floor. But then the creepiest part of it was the thing that we didn't hear that ended up on the recording, and that was the man's voice afterwards. There's a man's voice afterwards, and it sounds like he says, I told you not to make a move. And it's echoey, it's distant and echoey, so it's very thick. The voice is thick just because of how much echo there is on it. But that's to us what we feel like it says. And I'll never forget that experience. And
that's what you're chasing, bro. We need a therapist. but that sounds incredible.
Yeah. And nothing's ever come close.
Really?
Nothing I've experienced in my life since then has ever come close. And to me, people always say, well, do you think it was a ghost shooting at you? And I say, no, I don't think it was at all. I think I was in the right place. Joe and I were sitting in that psych ward at the right place at the right time. And we heard a snapshot in time that was lost whenever it might have happened. Because did they discharge a firearm in the psych ward at any point? Maybe, I don't know. But that used to be the 4th tier of a cell block, of a mainline population cell block before they renovated the prison to build the psych ward in 1972. So from 1972 back, that would have been the 4th tier of a mainline population cell block. And so I don't know what it was that we heard or what we experienced, but I would love to have it happen again. It was so impactful to me. This sound wave right here on my arm is the audio waveform of that gunshot.
Wow, that's awesome. Golly, that's cool.
So when I get frustrated and think I haven't had an experience in 6 months to a year, I don't know why I'm still doing this.
Yeah.
I'm bored every time we go and sit in a dark building and talk to nothing. But then I'm like, no, that's what I'm chasing.
Yeah, and that gets into all kinds of things. I want to talk about how you keep that fun alive. And I've just been doing this a short time, but you can start to feel like it's a content meal.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, this isn't what I got into it for. And you got to kind of work, at least I do personally, I have to work back to that point of like why I do this. And it's because I enjoy it, you know, and I want to share these experiences. So once people don't understand, like once you do it all the time, and you start having deadlines, and I can tell you're an entrepreneur, so you probably are hard on yourself and you're putting a lot of hours in. It can dampen it. And it's important to remember what that feels like. And that's cool. Yeah. You got the tattoo on your on your arm.
Yeah, it is. Because YouTube is a grind. I literally broke my brain trying to grow this YouTube channel. I have generalized anxiety disorder now. I mean, I've had anxiety my whole life, but you know, I struggle with panic attacks frequently, simply because of the schedule and the content schedule. Because it's every single week we put out a video every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And it becomes very difficult to maintain that because it's the traveling, the time away from home, finding new locations to investigate, and then also finding time to sit in front of the computer and edit every single week on top of traveling to all these places. It can be exhausting.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then
all the unexpected hurdles.
All the unexpected hurdles that, you know, we've gone through over the years, and it just makes it very difficult to remember why you do it. And that's something we're working towards gradually currently, is trying to get back to that feeling by scaling back some of the production and not putting so much pressure on ourselves to make everything so cinematic, because that's where we spend most of our time. And when you're distracted by the cinematics of your cinematography or the quality of every single shot that you get, you're not in tune with the actual energy of the buildings, and it becomes very quiet. I've found that when we kind of release ourselves from the production mindset, then stuff happens more often. But when you're in the production mindset and all you're thinking about when you're on camera is, well, do I have enough camera angles? Or is that camera still recording? Or is Dave getting a wide enough shot to capture this or that or this?
Yeah.
You're not focusing on the energy, and you don't have anything happen.
Exactly. And you're forgetting the fact that you're standing in front of this grave that's like 2,000 years old, or wherever you are. Because I try to just absorb and be in the moment while I'm there. And ours is very, it's very basic as far as production goes. But even still, I'd like to get better and work my way toward, you know, some more cinematic and well-produced things. But literally, my schedule, I put out 2 reels every single day, and that in the morning it's a story, and in the evening it's either I'm out on location doing something, or it's another like mini documentary that's like 90 seconds long. And it's just so much. And I'm like, and when I say, well, let me cut back a little bit, I'm always scared that people will forget and they won't care about your channel anymore, and we make up all this BS. And so I'm actively like, and you doing it for so long, you need to give me some tips. I'm actively working on that, figuring that out, because it's either like my wife is finally fed up and like, you know what, we're going to get divorced, or I figure out how to juggle this and not. And we do a good job. Like now I'll bring them with me and we'll go out, and people are starting to comp tickets now and just say, hey, come, you know, visit and ride this train and do these different things. And we make a day out of it. And where my production is so low, it's literally cell phone, hold it up, do a few different things. It really doesn't take that much time out of us enjoying the experience. So that's kind of like our summers is just us going to different places and me trying to keep my daughter off cam as much as possible, because you don't know who's watching. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure.
But so that's how we juggle. Are you married?
I'm going to be married next year.
Congratulations.
I'm engaged to be married. I proposed to her in March, and we've got a date scheduled for October of 2027. So.
Where's she from?
She's from up near Pittsburgh.
Oh, cool.
So she grew up in Butler, and her family is now from the Cranberry Township area. And so actually I met her on she messaged me on Instagram. And the reason she messaged me was because she happened to come across one of the stories that I had posted about our Pennhurst state school and hospital investigation, and she saw that I was into the paranormal, and she'd had some experiences herself in the past and was just kind of getting into the idea of the paranormal. So she messaged me just to kind of pick my brain about
She slid in the DMs, eh?
She slid in the DMs, yep. And then we kept talking, and then I went up to hang out with her and meet up with her, and it was a date in my mind the whole time, but I guess she didn't realize it was a date at first. And then until I bought her dinner for her and said, well, I'll just pay for dinner because it's an excuse to call it a date.
Shoot, yeah. Well, smoking. So I call my wife Smoking Hot Wife. That's her name on the thing. And I slid in her MySpace DM.
Oh, there you go. That's taking it back.
Yeah, which they're bringing it back. Did you hear about that?
I saw that.
They're bringing it back.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. I mean, who's going to be in your top 6? Like, we got to think about this.
We do.
Because y'all have met a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. For sure. We've met so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then people are going to start getting upset and be like, why ain't I in the top 6, Ryan? What's the deal? The whole thing. I feel like I got to explain why I shot a gun indoors. Let me do that real quick. So, I shot early on when I got into filmmaking. It wasn't because of paranormal stuff, but it was I wanted to make a zombie movie. So it was like horror type stuff. And I did I would do these Monday challenges off this show called Film Riot. They would have these Monday challenges where they would say, film a 1-minute gunfight. So I did at my in-laws food bank, and to get the sound effects, like I literally fired a gun into the hillside to get that reverberation inside the place. So that's why it was like I'm a terrible hunter. But that's the only time I fired a weapon indoors.
You got to get that Foley, man. You got to get that Foley.
Killers. But all right, so the feeling of scared. So I'll share what I've thought about this a lot, and for me personally, it's happened 2 times. One was at Trans-Allegheny, and the other was at an old Catholic cemetery called St. Bernard in Lewis County. I don't know if you've been there. If you haven't been, make the trip. Okay. Like you drive 8 miles, country 1-lane road, all the way up this mountain, and all of a sudden the most beautiful church you've ever seen just pops out of nowhere. And then they say it's there's graveyards at churches, but it says cemetery on it. That's all I know what to say is Google says St. Bernard Cemetery. And you have all these old, I'm talking like late 1700s, early 1800s graves. And you have this huge crucifixion monument. I'm talking, it's taller than this room. It's huge. And they don't make monuments like they used to anymore, man. I want those hand cut deals like that. But anyway, so those are the only 2 times. And the way I describe it is, I don't know if you've ever had acupuncture or like dry needling or anything like that, but imagine getting that all across like your trap muscle and your neck. And the level of severity depends on how far the needle is in. Like, it's just like this sense of awe, this really heavy sense of awe just all of a sudden occurs out of nowhere. And at the cemetery, it was literally like there was no reason for it. It just came out of nowhere when I was walking. Yeah. And then I just sat in that moment and I'm like, that is insane. I've only had really peaceful, I haven't had any scary situations like you described, but I've only had really peaceful, like happy moments, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because the energy can manifest from many experiences. I've had many experiences where it's like, you have something creepy happen, but you don't feel like there's any danger. It's just you're hearing something or you get that feeling that you're not alone, but they don't mean you harm. Like we lived in a house in Parkersburg for 3 years that we just moved out of. And there was a couple of deaths that happened in that house built in the late 1800s. And I remember the coolest experiences we had in that house was we would wake up and we'd smell breakfast being cooked downstairs, even though no one was awake cooking. And we did some digging and found the obituary for the lady that used to own the house who passed away. And in her obituary, it said that she loved to cook big breakfasts for her family. And so...
I love this lady.
Yeah. And so it was so weird to wake up and smell bacon and eggs and pancakes, even though there's nobody cooking breakfast downstairs. And then the more as you get closer to the kitchen downstairs, it kind of fades and dissipates.
Yeah.
And so weird experiences like that. It's like, it's not all scary. Sometimes it's just, sometimes it's just a part of the story, which I think is why I love the paranormal so much, is it's a way to experience history, not just hear about history, but to experience it.
Oh yeah, it's like you're there in the moment of like, there's so much that has happened right here. I'll go through the smallest coal towns, and the normal person will just drive through and be like, oh, you know, this is the middle of nowhere or whatever. But I'm like, dude, do you know what just happened in that holler like 150 years ago? This place is incredible. Yeah, I think about that stuff whenever I go through, and that's part of that's everything. It's literally, we can't let that stuff die. And I think that's why, you know, because we're real story. I mean, we probably will end up telling every story West Virginia has to offer 2 or 3 times by the time this is over with. But I just want it out there.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Not that it ain't, but a lot of this stuff, you know, typical response I'll get is, I didn't know that ever happened. I didn't know that would, you know, and I just think, how did you not know? Because it's so crazy that like,
yeah, because you don't want to see those stories or that history die. And, you know, there's a theory or a philosophy that I've heard people say before, is that like your first death is when you actually die, but your last death is when nobody says your name ever again.
Oh, yeah.
And so to get to hear these stories and say these names and talk about these people that lived here before us is more important than the paranormal activity itself, because it's keeping someone's legacy and their story alive.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you look at an old grave, and y'all may do this now, but like, for instance, I don't know if y'all been to Salem, but you go to the memorial there and you look at these graves, and literally they used to just walk around and talk like this. I mean, it was crazy. Like, you know, all of a sudden you're being considered a witch and they're having a trial to like take care of business. But people just would walk around like this and just have normal lives and laugh and, you know, carry on, tell jokes and get scared. And I think about that stuff, and now you just have this old memorial from however long ago, and I just like to wonder, like, I wonder what that person sounded like when they would talk.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff that we'll never be able to answer, but I just find fun to think about in an odd way. I don't know.
Right.
And the warm part too, like I had one experience when I was a kid. I think it all goes back to when my parents got along. They ended up getting divorced, but I remember waking up when I was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old. I was really young. And I think what it is now is my ceiling fan was on. But I think like in the drowsiness of waking up, I just saw literal Casper the Friend, like literal sheets, white sheet ghosts flying around the ceiling in a circle. And I just let out the biggest scream. And it was probably, I don't know, around witching hour, probably around 3 a.m. And my mom came in, gave me a hug. The entire family got up. Like, I was so freaked out that everyone went downstairs, sat in the living room. We had the lights on and we all just laid there and watched TV together. And it was just, I remember the feeling of just being comforted. And it wasn't a regular occurrence in my house. It was with my mom, but like it was one of them households where people are at odds.
Yeah.
Like it's World War III every day. And I don't know if that subliminally is sitting around there on why I enjoy this stuff, like a peaceful moment from my childhood or what, but I get that mostly out of this. It's not really scary. I mean, you know, of course, death probably scares really anyone, but it makes me think that there's something else.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, it goes all the way back to antiquity of people sitting around a campfire and that being the only light that they had access to. They couldn't see out in the woods. They didn't know what was out there. And the only thing that they could do to stay safe was sit around the fire and tell each other stories, you know? So
that's great. Yeah.
And it's become a part of our DNA as humans to just love to sit around and tell stories.
I wonder if any time like a wolf jumped out and just ripped out the dude's throat in front of everybody, like, oh my God, we were trying to be comforted and now Fred's dead.
And then I'm sure that was the next story at the next campfire.
It's like, let me tell you about the storyteller Fred. But yeah. Oh, cool. So let's talk Appalachia for a second. I need a top 10 for Halloween season. a top 10 haunted places in Appalachia that you would suggest people check out so they'll know. And you can give a light overview of each, but I'm just curious. And we have not practiced this.
No.
Yeah, this is just, I'm throwing them to the wolves and we're going to see what happens.
This one's just off the cuff. I mean, in the top two, you have to have, of course, the West Virginia Penitentiary and the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. I mean, those are just the top. It's like the throne of
the Mecca.
The Mecca of the haunted locations in Appalachia. But there's some small ones that we've been to that, Old Hospital on College Hill is another one, not to change subjects again. I was saying small ones and I named a big building, but Hospital on College Hill is up there and a hospital that was taking care of patients in one of the bloodiest counties in West Virginia, Bloody Mingo, and
I never thought of that. How old is that hospital?
The 30s, 20s, 30s.
Yeah, it was, I think 20s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So there was, it didn't see the height of the, feud, but the feud was still going on. And in fact, one of the owners is, Charlie Hatfield. Mm-hmm. And so he is a part of the Hatfield family from the Hatfield McCoy feud. And he was the mayor of Williamson for a while and now is still co-owner with Tanya. And so, but there was one that we did years ago that was probably one of the locations that scared me the most. And I'm going to be a little bit vague about the location because it is private. It's a privately owned cabin that we did in 2017. Is that when it was? 2017?
First time, I think. Yeah.
First time. And it goes all the way back with Mountaineer Paranormal. It's this little cabin in Logan and it's up in the mountains. And Paulie, Dave's mom, first heard about this cabin through email. The owner reached out and said, hey, come investigate our cabin. And then when they got there, they realized this place was a lot more up than they thought.
Sure.
The family believed that this place, the cabin, was cursed and that if you lived in the cabin or you stayed in that cabin, that you would either die in that cabin or shortly after you left that cabin.
Lovely place.
Yes. And there's stories of the family's grandfather built the cabin out of the timber from the land, but he was very involved in the KKK. And there's stories of people being killed in the cabin and buried in the basement because their grandfather, before he passed away, would always tell the grandchildren, who at that time that we went there owned the cabin and the house next to it. But he would always tell his grandchildren, don't dig in the basement. And they'd get in trouble if they would go down to the dirt floor in the basement and try and dig. Was the entities or spirits named Sally? Was that the name that went along with it that the family called it?
That sounds familiar for some reason.
Yeah, and it was just wild, the number of people, because not only would the family stay in the cabin, but they would also hold funeral services in this cabin ever since it was built. It was like a place where they would hold funeral services. But we had some crazy experiences, and Paulie and Dave had some crazy experiences before we ever went there. It was a wood burning stove to heat the cabin, and at the time it was still in pristine condition. And they all went to the bathroom because they were scared to go to the bathroom alone. So they'd stand outside the bathroom in a line and just kind of guard the door. And when they all came back, the wood burning stove door had been unlatched, opened, and there was just smoke pouring into the cabin.
Right. Wow.
And because they had completely had it latched. And when they came back, it was wide open. They showed up and there was a guy living in there at the time and he didn't want to leave, even though the owner had told him that he needed to leave for the investigation to happen. And Paulie and Dave told us that there was something he was screaming at something and they heard something screaming back at him. And when he left, he was the only one in there.
Nice.
And so we went in 2017.
What state is this?
This is Logan, West Virginia.
Okay. Lord, yeah, son.
Yeah. So lots of creepy stuff in there, but we went the first time in 2017 and I remember we heard, just the surroundings are creepy in and of themselves. It was after dark and we hadn't even started investigating yet. And there was sounded like a rifle fired, maybe
on the ridge right across from us.
Right across from us, completely dark. And they're just firing off rifles in the dark. And we're like, okay, this is a bit dangerous. I don't know what's going to happen.
Bro, y'all
here.
were in Don Chafin's hunting cabin or something. That's awesome.
Yeah. And Jason had scratches show up on his back during that investigation.
Yeah.
And then our friend Renee found a coin in her pocket that she'd never seen before. Turned out to be an Israeli shekel, 5 shekels from Israel. And she didn't even know what it was. The only thing she had in her coat pocket was her vape, which she was changing pockets for her vape every time she would use it. Because, I used to vape. I know how it is. You put it in your pocket, use it, then you put it in a different pocket. But then at the end of the night, she reached in to get her vape and her vape banged up against something, and she pulled it out, and it was a coin from Israel in her pocket. And she had to get Steve to identify it because she'd never seen it before. And then 3 days later, after that investigation, she was hospitalized with symptoms of a heart attack.
Wow.
The family talked about there was a guy that went down there because the cabin had caught fire before we investigated in 2017. No electricity to the cabin. It would have had to have been arson or something paranormal. Those are the options.
Sure.
But it burned the whole kitchen out of the back.
Arson or the devil.
Arson or the devil.
Yeah. One of two.
And so the cabin had completely burned out. And so it looked abandoned. And there was someone, before we went back the second time in 2020, a gentleman.
This is all episodes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called The Cursed Cabin is what we called it.
Got it.
So it's 2017 and then 2020, I believe, was the second time. There was a gentleman that went down there to strip copper from the cabin, and he asked if he could go down. He asked the family if he could strip copper because he felt like it was going to be torn down. And they said, no, don't go down there. That's dangerous down there. And he did. He went down there anyway. They found him dead in a ditch of a drug overdose 3 days later.
Oh, goodness.
And it just, the stories go on and on and on. We interviewed them and we said, so how many people have died in the cabin or died shortly after they left? And she started naming them off. Jimmy, Bobby, just like she named
375.
Off, yeah, it was that's what it felt like. She just kept naming off names and we're like, this many people have died in this from their family alone.
Oh, goodness.
And then there was another horrific, which I won't get into because I don't want to, talk about the family's business, but our contact and the owners also passed away a couple years ago in a very tragic and violent way.
Goodness. Of the cabin?
Of the cabin. Yeah. My
goodness.
They lived on the property with it, and it was more of a drugs and family infighting that caused their death. But
yeah, the curses are a thing, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And they believe they were cursed. They told us many times, they're like, that cabin is cursed. Be careful.
Well, and then the second time we were there, between what had happened to me the first visit with getting scratched, which that was terrifying. That made me question whether or not I wanted to even continue investigating. I woke up the next morning in our hotel and still had the welts. But between that and knowing what had, happened with Renee, and would soon to find out, the cardiac symptoms, a couple days later that happened to her. Second time I was very apprehensive to even step foot in the cabin. I wasn't even completely sold on if I was going to go in or not. Mm-hmm. But, it takes a lot for any of us to get, kind of shook up, but I've always said that I'm more afraid of the living than the dead. And this is kind of an anecdotal thing, but that second night, that second night, it was probably like 2 a.m, give or take. We're just taking a break outside the cabin. We had like a little tent, some tiki torches. We're just,
chilling.
Yeah, just chilling. And I don't remember if it was a relative of the family, but this older gentleman, we shortly later would find out it was an older gentleman. But I just look up the hill. It's just an old, like a logging road kind of to get up, down to this cabin. I look up the road and I see a flashlight real slow coming down. And I felt like, why is no one else noticing? And I looked at everyone. It was, let's see, Ryan, Dave, Steve, and I, Polly, Renee again. And I said, hey, guys, we got company. And we're like, okay, and so we're all looking. This older guy on a cane, or like a walking stick, he comes down. He's got his flashlight.
It was actually fixed to the walking stick, if you remember. It was attached. So he walked through the woods at night a lot because he had the walking stick. And the flashlight was actually fixed to the walking stick.
MacGyver, son.
Yeah. And he, he was cordial, but he came down and started talking to us. He already had prior knowledge of why we were there. He's like, anything happened for you in there? We're like, yeah, it's, we're not going into too many details because we're still kind of weirded out by this guy. Just his presence was a little odd, and he was uninvited.
Yeah, we'd never seen him. He just walked out of the woods. We're like, who are you?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And he goes into, I don't know how much I should say, but we ran it by him and said, well, supposedly we've heard there's remains in the basement. And he went off and named names and said, oh, yeah, I think he said, anyway, he gave a number on, supposedly, we don't know, don't know this guy from Adam, as they say. But supposedly he was confirming, they're in there, and he said it like it was nothing. And shortly thereafter, there was kind of a lull in the conversation. And then he just said, well, if y'all could pick, how would you want to die?
Oh, God.
Now it's 2 a.m, in the mountains of, Logan County, West Virginia. Here's this stranger guy. We don't know who he is. He could have a gun on him or anything, asking us, how would you want to die? When he said that is almost scarier than anything paranormal. I almost had a hot flash because I went into fight or flight because I'm like, I'm about to jump up and either tackle this old man.
I'm about to grab that walking stick and we're going to.
Or I'm going to run across that ravine. Something's going to happen.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because he had a very thick accent, as most people do up in the mountains of Logan, very thick West Virginia accent that can sometimes be difficult to understand. So, because some of the words get muddled together in a way, just the way that they talk. So we're listening very intently to this guy as he's telling us about the possible people buried in the basement. And then to have him just come out with that, it was almost one of those moments like, did we just hear you correctly? Did you ask us how we wanted to die?
Yeah.
And then eventually the conversation shifted and he was cordial. And then we're like, well, we're going to go back in. And then he just walked back into the woods. I don't know where he came from, which house he came from. He just walked back into the woods.
That's cool. He may have just been wanting to vibe out with the paranormal too, maybe he didn't, because I find typically, like, I've ran across a few people like that and that kind of accent, like I have an accent, but sometimes I call it letting the banjo pick, like when someone's like really got that thick drawl. But I've ran into people in the most random spots and didn't have a house around, and they just turn around and like, oh yeah, the cemetery's that way, buddy. Just walk on down 100, just so nice. So I think that kind of our own stereotype that we've been told over the years kind of tells us stuff too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He probably just was like, man, I really hope they have an EMF meter. I've been wanting one for a long time. But that's still creepy.
If we followed our senses from just watching horror movies, we would have turned around and ran. But, in reality, he was a nice guy, and it was just a very poorly timed question. But I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, because when I answered him, because I think I was the first one to answer him, I looked at him and I said, probably when I'm really old in my sleep peacefully.
Not in the woods.
Not in the woods. So, and then after that, things kind of lightened up a little bit, and he was genuinely just curious. But that's
great.
Little word of advice for anyone: don't meet random strangers in the woods and ask them how they're going to die. They might get a bit freaked out.
Yeah, or how they would like to die. It may go a little sideways.
Yeah.
So we got Logan County cabin, Old Williamson Hospital, Trans-Allegheny.
Would you
prison.
consider Radford, Virginia, to be Appalachia?
Yeah, that's Appalachia. That's the
St. Albans Asylum in Radford.
That place is creepy. It's mostly a haunted attraction now that they do overnight paranormal investigations in through the rest of the year. And it started out as a boys' school. And there was a gentleman, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he created this school to build the perfect Southern gentleman, was what his goal was. But what ended up happening was they kind of encouraged bullying, and there was a lot of violence between the boys in the years that the school was open. And it kind of attendance dropped, and it got a bad name, and eventually went out of business. And then there was a doctor, Dr. John King, I think was his name, purchased the school and turned it into the St. Albans Sanatorium, which was supposed to be a more progressive new age psychiatric hospital. He tried to use different ways to treat psychiatric conditions for that time, which would have been in like the mid 20th century or early-ish in the 1930s, 40s, something like that. And so still you had the electroshock and insulin therapy and things like that. So there were still some very devastating treatments that were used there.
Insulin therapy. Did they used to do this on purpose? Not for diabetics?
Yeah, just because they would overdose them on insulin and then they would bring them back.
Why didn't I know? Why don't I know about
Yeah, look it up. It's crazy. There's videos of people going through it and they're just convulsing. And
I'm a diabetic.
Yeah.
So that's, I got to look this up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. That's depressing.
Yeah, so it was awful. The people that had it done to them, it was awful. And there were people that died from it, obviously, because you're overdosing them on insulin,
That's not good. That's bad news bears.
Yeah.
Do they have a haunted house out there during Halloween?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember a guy telling me about that place in Radford.
And that one, we had one of the creepiest experiences of the past 10 years in that place, and it was in the women's isolation unit, which was for the high security level patients for the females. And I remember because this was the first time I ever had Miranda, my now fiance, do a solo session by herself. And there's a famous bowling alley in St. Albans that's said to be haunted. People hear footsteps, and there's some connections to unsolved murder. The unsolved, partially unsolved because they never found her body. They got a conviction, but Gina Renee Hall is the name of the college student that was killed, and they never found her body, but they convicted the guy that they think did it. But they believe Gina Renee Hall might haunt St. Albans because there was stories of the guy that committed the crime or was convicted of the crime was a part of a construction crew expanding the sanatorium at the time. And they think he might have buried her somewhere near there in some form or fashion, that her body is there. And that's why it was never found, is the legend. But the bowling alley is notorious for people communicating with Gina. Well, I left her alone, and she heard a really creepy scraping sound down there, had her own experiences that were pretty chilling, but we went over to the other side of the asylum to the women's isolation unit, and we set up and we're getting ready to do a session with an app called GhostTube Seer, which takes magnetometer readings, searches for fluctuations in magnetic fields, and then it will choose a word from the database that's assigned to that word, and then it will populate an image, an AI image.
Oh, that's fun.
And so we had and this isn't even the experience, this is just kind of a side tangent, because we had it populate one of the most relevant, creepy images ever, probably second most creepy, relevant image ever, but it was still up there. We're sitting there, and it populates an image of a train trestle with a shadowy figure of a person standing on it, and a demonic figure crouching, almost like a gargoyle, crouching next to them. Which is very creepy because they wrote a book about the Gina Renee Hall case called Under the Trestle, because that's where they found her car abandoned, was under the train trestle.
I'm going to write her name down.
Yes. And so there's a lot of, it was weird that and I even looked up the movie poster for the movie that they made about it, or the documentary they made about it a few years ago. And the poster for the documentary has a train trestle with a shadowy figure standing on it. So this seer image was so close to the story of the train trestle with Gina Renee Hall, which was very weird.
Do you know where the train trestle is?
Not exactly.
Dude, I went to this one near Christiansburg, and it's called Coal Holler Tunnel, and there's a train that goes over top. That'd be just so crazy if that was the place, because I've heard that there was 2 women that had been murdered and found in that tunnel.
I think this one was in Radford, though.
Oh, okay. So. Yeah. So it's probably a different one. You know.
But you can always go visit it.
Yeah, always check it out. Gina Renee
Hall.
Okay, I got that right down.
Yeah, and but then I'll let Jason tell the story about the actual experience in there, because it was wild.
Sure.
Yeah, it was shortly after Dave had reported to Ryan and I that image that he's seen on the Seer, that there's a device called a REM pod, which is a static proximity meter. It's got an antenna, and it will start to alert and flash a bunch of lights if the static field around the antenna is disrupted. And we had it set up in the I don't want to say guards room, but the staff's viewing room, where they could lock themselves in, and they had a window looking into the ward. Since, like Ryan said, this particular ward was for the violent and unruly female patients, and it starts going crazy. It's going off, and so we're continuing to ask questions. And I just watched back over this clip actually a few nights ago. I can't remember what the line of questioning was that we were going with, but all of a sudden, kind of adjacent to this staff viewing room at the one end of the ward, there's this bathroom. And all of a sudden, we hear this vocalization, but very much sounded human. I mean, at first listen, you could almost think, maybe it's an animal of some kind, but it sounds like a muffled, I don't even want to say a scream, but almost just like I don't even know how to recreate it, but just almost like a moaning, like a half moan, half like crying for help type of sound. And I mean, it's disembodied. I mean, we can actively hear it. coming from the bathroom, and it stops us dead in our tracks. And Ryan and I are looking at each other, because we're not under the sear like Dave is. He's at the other end of the room, so he's kind of oblivious to what we're experiencing back here. And Ryan and I are like, oh,
and I remember Dave saying, was that you guys? And we're like, and Jason, he's like, no. Yeah, that was exactly the response.
And then you can hear like a little bit of movement, like light movement coming from the bathroom. And we're just like, and this is one of those times like hair stand up the back of the neck. And I mean, it's like, you can feel it. It's like, oh, this is real. This is happening. You start hearing a little bit of movement. And, we're just leaning in, trying to listen as close as we can. I mean, you get into these investigations and, generally your environment is so quiet, you become hyper aware,
Sure.
You can almost hear your heart beating. And so we're just like tuned in. And I believe I said, hello. And I said that and you hear it again. Like, it almost like it was crying coming from the bathroom a second time. And at that point, I just about shit myself. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Ryan and I, we went in the bathroom, like kind of begrudgingly going in there, sure. And, but to investigate it further. And, and I was like, we're going to have to tell Dave about this. I was like, cause that was real creepy, and there was an exterior door in that bathroom led out onto like a little, like a loading dock area. And so for a very brief moment, we thought, okay, maybe it was a cat at that door. And unfortunately, we weren't able to substantiate this after the fact on camera. I wish I had have, but later that night, I went out onto that loading dock for a smoke break. And I thought, light bulb moment, let me go see if there's prints in the snow. Because this was in January, whatever. And there was like a fresh 2 inches of snow. There was no prints. And granted, I mean, you have to, take that at my word, but there was no prints outside that door. And that's when I came back in. I told the guys, I'm like, that was a vocalization. There's no way that was an animal because it's fresh sheet of snow there.
Mm-hmm. So they do tours all year here?
I don't know if they do daytime tours. I know they do the paranormal investigations.
All
you
year?
can book at any time of year. They might do historical tours. I'm not entirely sure, but
I need to go.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, especially in the basement of St. Albans where they would do a lot of the treatments and stuff. I mean, there's no windows. So if you don't have a flashlight, even if you just shut off your flashlight, it is darker than dark. Can't even see your hand in front of your face. And that's the whole basement. And there's so many wards down there and the cafeterias down there, I believe, and other stuff that, they would utilize. And it's just creepy.
Nice.
So
have y'all been to Waverly Hills?
Yeah.
I have not.
Couple times. 3 times? Something like that.
Yeah,
twice for filming.
That was one I had in my mind. I was like, oh, Waverly's another good Appalachia.
That's Appalachia, Eastern Kentucky.
Oh, for sure. And there's so many other places in Kentucky, too. We did a bunch of Kentucky locations with a group called Blue Collar Paranormal. He has access to a bunch of different places down there. But Waverly is definitely, I mean, it's notorious. It was one of the first big locations on the scene years and years ago when the paranormal first started to gain traction among, in popularity. But so the first time we went to Waverly was 2010 and we really didn't have anything happen, but we didn't film back then either. That was the summer before we started filming Paranormal Quest. So, and then we went back again in 2020 and we went back again in 2023, I want to say. But that second time we did hear singing, which was very creepy.
Yeah. I did a video on that famous photo that was taken there of the woman in the hallway or next to the doorway. Do you know what I'm talking? Yeah. But I've always wanted to go. I haven't made it over there yet, but hopefully.
It's definitely worth it. Do not go in the summertime. Do not go in the summertime.
Is it hot?
Oh, yeah, really?
The last time I was at Waverly Hills, it was during a heat wave 2 or 3 years ago, and it was like 110 during the day. And I remember they had just gotten to where they could air condition the first floor, and up until you get into like the area where past the morgue, if you remember where the morgue was, but once you get past the morgue, there's a door you open, and then the rest is not temperature controlled. And I remember we were taking the tour that night, and it was nice 67, 68 degrees in the air conditioned part. And we opened that door to go out into the non-temperature controlled part with the open windows. And the heat just hit us in the face like we were walking into a sauna. It had to have been 120 degrees out there.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it was miserable that night. We like so hot that it just makes it harder to breathe.
Sure.
So, but it's a really cool location.
What about graveyards? Y'all hit graveyards a lot, or
not a whole lot?
Not really.
So just because we like to investigate in places where we can kind of control our environment.
Oh yeah, okay.
So especially for documenting the evidence, we want to know if we hear someone talking that there's very little chance that there's someone, almost, or to no chance that there's someone in there with us.
Sure.
You know, so we like to do buildings. We've done graveyards and cemeteries. We did a lot of them during COVID, because that's when we really started to grow the channel, was in 2020. We decided we were going to start uploading a video every week, actually, at the start of COVID, because we all got laid off from our jobs. And that was kind of how the
channel
channel
didn't
started.
quit? You just built because you got laid off?
Mhm.
That's how, oh, wow. That's a fun path.
Yep. And
terrifying path.
Yeah. So we started out because that was when it was like the boogeyman days of COVID, when you didn't know what you were allowed to do. Like you didn't know. So we would investigate separately. We wouldn't even do it together. We would send, one of us would go out to a cemetery with 2 cameras and film a video, and then the next week, one of us would go out to a different cemetery and film a video, and never in the car together, never in the same building. And then it was late 2020 was when we started to actually investigate together again.
God, that's a traumatic time. We just, I'm thankful it's in the rear view window, hopefully, but it just really sucked there for about 2 years.
It did, yeah.
I remember thinking like, this is never going to end. And my kid would have to wear a mask all day at school. And I'm like, this has got to be doing something to these kids. Like, what's going on? Yeah. I don't know if we'll know the true effects of it for decades. But
oh, for sure. And it was difficult to investigate too. For when we started to actually book locations again, we had to. There were a lot of locations that didn't allow more than 3 people in a room, and so we had to pick and choose which ones we did. And I remember when the first and only time we did the Conjuring House was in February of 2021. And so that was like the height of COVID, and we were all masked up. We weren't even allowed inside the house unless we had our mask on.
Oh, wow. Was Cody and Satori there?
Not at that point, no. No, this was just when the...
I never hate on anybody, but I've recently dove in that rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah.
Of like, because I watched the episode with Sam and Colby, and then found out there's a lot of controversy happening, and I was like, oh, this is some tea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I dove into that. But and I don't hate on anybody, but it was very questionable. But I wish him well. It's got new ownership. Didn't Satori's dad, Jason,
just acquired it? Yeah, Jason Hawes from Ghost Hunters. And, from Taps. He just won that legal battle to get, and I don't know whether he has it fully or whether there's still more legal hurdles to get through. I haven't been following it very closely recently, but
yeah, it's
good to see that it's back in the hands of someone a little bit more level-headed than the previous owner, because we were going to go back when the previous owner owned it, and the prices hiked up really high, and there were specific rules. If you were going to film for YouTube, there was an extra charge. If you were going to live stream, you could only live stream for a certain period of time. And it was more money, and
and then they eventually had it to where like she approves the video before it goes out, and like there's all kinds of different things there. I will say this: Cody and Satori are very likable, on camera. I don't know, because so people will know there's a controversy saying they have this method where they would connect arms and they would hear knocking in the room, and I think this was after you all. Mm-hmm. They weren't doing that when y'all.
This was well after, because we were there in 2021. This happened just like 2 years ago.
I think this was like 2023, if I remember correctly. But anyway, they would essentially run through an alphabet until they would hear a knock. And then the people in the room would start hearing very personal things, things that you probably could know beforehand if you were doing research. But then I don't think anyone ever officially said, yes, we did that. I think that they did like a test without their socks and shoes on, and saying that, no, this is real. Anyway, think what you want about that. Is it Satori's the girl, right?
Yes.
Okay, so her dad's Jason Hawes, who was on the OG show taps.
Yes,
ghost hunters. Back in the day, and but anyways, he's a really likable dude. So I'm glad that he was able to get that purchase, because I think that's really going to help that location.
Yeah, because I mean, it really is a shame to see what not only the history of what the history of the house has gone through, but the history of the people. I mean, even just since the movies. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love The Conjuring, especially the first Conjuring movie. I love it. But what they did to Bathsheba is just criminal, because Bathsheba was not a witch. She did not kill her child. She was just a woman who lost a child due to natural causes. And then through folklore and the way the story was passed down because of Ed and Lorraine Warren, she was labeled as a witch through that case. Mm-hmm. And people have vandalized her grave. They've, completely destroyed her resting place. And now she's labeled as a witch. And this was just a lady who had a tragic life.
I need to dive into her. I didn't. That's one in the Conjuring universe that I have not paid. I know a couple of the Annabelle movies were really great, and it's funny that it's a Raggedy Ann doll. Mm-hmm. When you're like, oh, that's the doll. Like, I see why they embellished. But Ed and Lorraine too. Here's what I'll say, and I feel the same about Bigfoot. I don't care if it's fake or not. I really don't. I appreciate the imagination that all of that has brought forth. Now, did they have questionable things they did, especially with the Amityville house and a few different things? Of course, yes. I don't think that that's right to monetize people's pain, but at the same time, like with the Patterson-Gimlin film, I mean, we know it's fake. Mm-hmm. Come on, but I don't care. Right, I'm just glad. I like the culture that developed, if that makes sense. But anyway,
and that's why we always put a strong emphasis on researching the history of locations before. Sure. There was the house in Belle Plaine, Iowa that we did a couple years ago for the Halloween special that we did, and we put so much effort into researching, trying to find the story of the people behind the tragedy, or underneath of the tragedy, that were being overshadowed by the tragedy, so to speak. And there's a lot of people now, because the house has become a lot more well-known and renowned in the paranormal field and has been purchased by some YouTubers, and there's people saying that he was influenced by something demonic to kill his parents, and the truth of the matter is he was just a guy who had a traumatic brain injury at work and was trapped living with his parents and taking care of them as they aged, and probably just snapped from the pressure and his mind slowly deteriorating from the brain injury. And it's just a shame that now it's like it's all become the demons and the demonic, and I feel like that really does a disservice to the stories of real people who lived these things that that contributed to the haunting, so to speak.
Sure, yeah. Well, you mentioned in the witch thing, like, yeah, that's tragic and it's awful. Mm-hmm. That's the awful part about it, is when someone's legacy is tainted to the point of, like, that's abuse. I mean, that's character abuse. Mm-hmm. Now that's I don't know the case you're referring to, but I think a lot of times it's like Jason said, we have to assign demons to this because it's actually more terrifying to realize what humans are capable of.
Exactly. Yeah. It really is.
Like, the paranormal stuff's fun. I get into this because I love it, and I also feel that there's something to it, but also it takes me away from the fact that realizing there's some sick person out there that may take a weapon and shoot 50 people today in some random place. You know what I mean? That's way more terrifying than a freaking witch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, because like the old saying goes, when you look at a serial killer, they always expect you to see this horrible, demonic-looking person with snarling teeth. And the scariest thing is a serial killer just looks like us.
Oh, yeah. The dude, what's the guy's name that would just cut off heads and ride around with them in his passenger seat?
Ted Bundy.
Well, Ed Kemper?
Ed Kemper is who I'm talking about. Ted Bundy would smack him in the head with a crowbar and then, like, make love to their dead corpse.
Put him in the floorboard of his Beetle.
He's got problems.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing. You look at something like that, and it kind of is like a scapegoat, to take responsibility away from the actions of the human being behind those actions. by saying that it's some evil demonic force that they were influenced to do it. And that's something that I don't agree with. You know, granted, the people that committed these crimes are their own nuanced people with their own nuanced problems.
Scumbags.
But at the end of the day, it's their own actions that contributed to what they did. And, you know, it's diving into it and being fascinated by horrible things and horrible actions that lead people to be interested in serial killers. But it just, you know, so it just, that whole scapegoat of like, oh, a demon influenced them to do this, I just can't get behind that because it takes responsibility away from the person.
Watch the trial of Ted Bundy and tell me you don't leave liking the dude.
Oh, he was a very likable guy.
Charismatic. Mm-hmm. That's the terrifying part, is when you have that realization of like, who's the guy that played him in the show? Zach Crap. They made a good casting choice.
His name was Zach Crap?
No. it was, who's the guy that was in High School Musical? And then
Efron.
Oh, Zac Efron.
Yeah.
That's right.
Amazing actor.
Yes.
They made a great casting choice because Zac Efron is a likable, good-looking dude, and Ted Bundy was a likable, good-looking dude.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to, like, we won't make progress until we realize it's like the profiler for the FBI that first started profiling serial killers. Thank God for that, dude, because there's so much information that we learned because of that.
Yeah.
And people just thought before, like, it was the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not going to keep this from happening.
Right. Yeah. The idea that nobody's born a serial killers are created by their surroundings.
Sure.
And therefore, I guess in some nuanced way, we all have a hand in creating serial killers because it's society and the people around them at large that put them through things that influence them to lean into those bad behaviors. You know?
There's different branches. Like, I think typically they narrowed it down to like problem with their mother is the one for like Ed Gein, Ted Bundy, Ed Kemper. All these people had some kind of problem with a female figure in their life that raised them. And, but now, you know, society too. I mean, I'll never forgive a mass shooter ever, but we have to realize like certain things happen to occur to bring someone to this level. You know, one is they're a jackass, but step two is there may have been these other elements that we could have controlled at the time. You know what I mean? We never asked for this, but we need to actively figure out like, how do we prevent these things? And we still haven't figured it out.
Right. Yeah. The difference between criminal punishment and crime prevention is kind of the disconnect there. It's like, yeah, we can punish people that already commit crimes all we want, but that's not going to do anything to stop the cycle of people committing criminal acts and violent crimes.
Sure.
And when we delve into the human mind and start to look at like, okay, what can we do to prevent people from going through these horrific and traumatic things that mold them into the monsters that are portrayed through the serial killer documentaries and stuff? It really is a matter of, do you want to punish the people after they commit the crimes, or do you want to prevent it from ever having happened,
Sure. Well, and we rationalize things in our own mind to help us sleep at night. And then the depressed ones just wander around in nihilism because, to be honest, I don't know if we're able to get the toothpaste back in the tube now. It's like people rationalize, oh, well, if you take the guns, if you do this, if you do that, like maybe it'll prevent certain aspects. Sure. But like, I think there's 100 things. And ultimately, I don't know what you do. And I think all of us are in that void of darkness. It's like, well, if someone could go back like butterfly effect and just prevent, any gun or anything from ever occurring ever, like, okay, maybe that would be, but that's impossible because now you're just going to do things that are going to hurt certain aspects to where it wouldn't have affected that situation. It's just so complicated, like anything else.
Yeah, and on an individual level too. We can get back to the paranormal after
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, listen, I'm not in a hurry. I hope y'all ain't.
Oh, no, for sure.
I love talking to y'all, but go ahead.
On an individual level, a good example of that is one of the most famous American criminals in history is Charles Manson. That man, I mean, he became in the 1960s, he was the boogeyman. But when you actually start looking into his past and what the crimes that were perpetuated against him as a child, and the things that him being locked up in a reformatory from the age of 10, 11, and being assaulted and beaten and brutalized from a child and being locked up all the way through his childhood and never knowing what it was like in the real world. What do you expect when you do that to someone and then release them out into the world and say, okay, go figure it out on your own? It's gonna end badly.
Sure.
And so there's a really good documentary that I watched not long ago on Hulu. Actually, the granddaughter of Charles Manson made a documentary about his life, kind of researching everything that happened to him as a child that led up to the things, kind of taking a more nuanced approach than just he was evil and did bad things. And it's very interesting. She just found out she was his granddaughter like 3 years ago. She had no idea.
I know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to check that out.
It's a very interesting documentary.
There's one on Netflix that's like a 6-part episode that talks about how he was experimented on by the CIA. And I don't know. It goes deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, man, well, he's from West Virginia. I'll tell that part about it.
Yeah.
He lived here for a little while. But
Yeah.
I don't know if we're claiming.
The thing with Charles is, like Ryan said, he the lottery of birth, so to speak, he got the short end of the stick, but then he had virtually no schooling, no education. And I think later in life that contributed to his free association and interviews and stuff. He's all over the place. People called him crazy. And I'm not going to sit here and be crazy and say that Charles Manson wasn't crazy. He was a hippie. He was self-proclaimed beatnik, whatever. But, I guess my thing with him is because I've, had this knocked up my head a couple times or 3, and I've explained it to people. It is a pet peeve of mine. Everyone always calls him a serial killer. And you look it up, his actual convictions through the state of California were conspiracy to murder.
Yeah, he didn't kill anyone.
He didn't kill anyone. It was, Patricia Krenwinkel, Sadie Atkins, Leslie Van Houten, and Tex Watson. And I'm not saying that Charlie Manson wasn't guilty of maybe influencing them and giving them all the LSD and drugs that they were taking, and but accountability is accountability, and they were the ones that took those knives and did what they did.
Yeah, and then he did things like put the swastika in his forehead and all these crazy things that like built this. And plus, all them they came to the courtroom, and all the women shaved their heads and were singing, and like it was like just insanity that we were witnessing. But yeah, I agree with. I'll put it in the same thing of like Heaven's Gate. Okay, if Marshall Applewhite didn't kill himself, is he responsible for the 30 people that did?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Now he ended up killing himself too, but like, I think to a certain portion, yeah, he's a cult leader, but at the same time, their cult, anyone could leave. Anyone could go in and out anytime they wanted. As far as what I understand, that's the way their commune was. Like typically, most cults, you can leave. And that's the scary part about it. We're like, how in the world did they do? Like, well, these are humans.
Mm-hmm.
They somehow arrived at this decision that where they felt like, this is my community.
Mm-hmm. They chose their path.
Yeah. And it's like, I tend to, that's the thing. But then you say like, did he really deserve all that time in prison? And you're like, yeah, he deserved some kind of portion, but is it directly proportionate to what actually occurred and what the other people got too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. We're weird.
We are.
Humans are weird.
Very weird.
Yes.
And all that to say, I agree with the fact that, serial killers, people that commit crimes, do violent things. The scariest part about it is they're just like you and I. All 3 of us sitting here, they look just like us. They have dreams and hopes and histories just like us. And so, yeah, that's the very nuance, but it doesn't sell movies and books. So
no, I'd rather search for the Mothman.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, hey, I just got a good Mothman mug this weekend.
Oh, heck yeah.
I should have brought it in.
Have y'all done any episodes on the Mothman?
We filmed one way back. I'll say way back, but this was probably 2017, 2018 or something. But it was more of a vlog because it's so busy in Point Pleasant. But,
oh, yeah.
Being in Parkersburg for so long when we lived there for 3 years, it was only 45 minutes away from Point Pleasant. So we should have gone back and done more. But, Unfortunately, unlike the show Mountain Monsters, Mothman doesn't just appear in a cage. And
he teleports.
He doesn't just teleport into your in and out of your cage. So
sure, no, yeah. Well, I do want to get into some process stuff. So I'm curious, how did you develop your format to know what to shoot at these locations? What is that format? Is there certain shots you need to get, like establishing shots, and you have a drone and there's these different things? Like, what's your checklist going in?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's quite interesting because the checklist has become habitual at this point. So I can't like sit down and say like when we get there, I know we need this, and that, because Dave and I just know when we get there, we got to get drone shots. We have to get exterior establishing B-roll shots. We have to get interior establishing B-roll shots. We then have to get time lapses for periods of like between daytime and nighttime when the investigation happens. We have to get an interview of some kind or multiple interviews about the stories and the experiences that people have and the history, and letting the people that have had experiences there tell their story. So then that can set up what we might have happen on the investigation. And then thumbnail pictures. And at one point,
what's the art of thumbnail pictures in your opinion?
It's funny because it's different for every channel. And that's the thing that I think makes it so confusing with YouTube, is everyone thinks there's a one size fits all formula for thumbnails. But, we have had many YouTube channels we know many YouTube channels who their best performing videos are their face on the thumbnail with something spooky beside them, whether it be the building. For us, we put our faces on the thumbnails straight to the bottom of the list of video performance. What does best for us is the building, the actual building we're investigating, center frame. Doesn't have to be night. It can be day. It just depends on what mood I'm in when I'm making it. And, you do night or long exposure photography has been a big thing that I've done for thumbnails for a long time. A long exposure photograph of the building itself. And I just get about 8 to 10 different angles of the building with a long exposure photograph and, put text above it, kind of add some creepy clouds in there, add some fog and some mist when I do the editing, or sometimes not. Sometimes there were periods where it was just flashlight on building, text above or below, and boom, that's the thumbnail.
I'll admit I have, so the red circle and the red arrows and all these things, I have added someone in the window, put a circle on it. Like, some of the thumbnails are the most ridiculous things ever, to where, that's crazy.
Yeah, it almost makes you feel ashamed when you're editing it, because you're like, this is so cheesy and stupid.
But it works.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's not like Sam and Colby is like, half the screen is their face, and then they have like this little building, and that's because like they have such a following that was built on literally like them getting arrested and all these other different things built on their face. So that makes sense. Like location based thumbnails is what worked for you all. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I just think that nobody wants to look at this face. That's the problem.
Well, no, I think it just varies on the type, because when you watch your videos, like, I'll be honest, like, I appreciate what Sam and Colby have done, but it's too ADHD for me.
Yeah. Oh,
it's so all over the place.
Overstimulating.
Overstimulating is the word. And not that anything, obviously there's nothing wrong with that. It's what works for them. But your all's is more of like, I can absorb and have all the pretty stuff, but it's kind of more of your typical documentary narrative than, let's get scared and jump out of the room and like, hey, and all these things. Now, listen, I like a lot of their videos too. The Conjuring series was great. But for my taste, it's too much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's a more societal evolution with the age of the internet and TikTok and everyone's attention span shortening.
Sure.
Because we tried to take, when we started making our episodes, our investigation videos, we kind of took inspiration from more of like classical documentary filmmaking, where you build the tension, and just because things are quiet doesn't mean that there's nothing happening. You can get enveloped by the imagery, even though there's not someone screaming at all points of the video, and as attention span has shortened, the content itself has followed suit. It's matched. It has to be action packed. Every 5 seconds, someone has to be screaming something. Someone has to be yelling. And it's very overstimulating for me because I still love old, like I watched isn't even that old. It was from 2008. I watched a movie the other night called Let the Right One In. It's a Swedish film.
Sure, yeah.
Great film, great vampire film. But there was entire sequences, 30, 45 seconds where it was just imagery and you were just looking at, and the imagery was telling the story and no one was talking. And I miss that so much. I miss people. And that sounds bad for me to say. I miss when people didn't talk, but I miss when people didn't talk.
Sure. No. And I think it's still there. I think it's like, and I don't want to sound like a hater at all. Like, I think there is room for all of these different elements. Just for me personally, the negative space, it's like with graphic design, the negative space means almost just as much as the positive space, if that makes sense. Like having the room to breathe for me, like I want to sit there and listen for 45 seconds to that static to see if I hear something.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think you can find that good mix, and listen, they're great. Love them. I'd love to have them in the studio, but just that's kind of what I've noticed. Like there's this channel called Grim Life Collective, and the production value and the standard terms of production value is so low. Like it's literally they just film and then walk around talking. And like I find I have moments where I just want that. I just want like to be there in this scene and just to enjoy it and just to hear them talk about it. So, but yeah, yours is, it's like a really good mix of that. And I just know what it takes to put everything into your craft and to figure that out. And I can see the 10,000 hours that you put into figuring it out and probably going crazy. Like you mentioned, like developing anxiety. Like I feel that too. Like I know I'm winding myself into this really tight banjo string, but, but I think you need that obsessive personality to a certain extent to even have a shot of building it, because you're going to have to go a long time and eat
a long time. Took us 14 years before we hit 100,000 subscribers, you know, like it took so long, and that really was the journey. It's all about, for us, we're doing what we love, getting to experience these stories, these locations, hearing the history. And there were points, I'm not going to lie, where it was frustrating because, you know, you want to get to the point to where it's self-sustaining. Right before 2021, I think it was, because shortly after when we got laid off during COVID, there was a few months where we were off work filming, started the weekly videos, but then we went back to work. And at the time I was working at the West Virginia Penitentiary. I'd do the night tours on the weekends. I'd do the overnights on Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday nights. And then Monday through Friday, I was doing maintenance, making sure the facility was clean, repainting things, building the haunted attraction. So it was like I had a 6-day-a-week full-time job on top of also doing content. And I was only sleeping an hour and a half a night.
Sure.
For months and months, actually almost a full year, I went with only getting about 2 hours of sleep a night on average. Until finally I was, Dave and I both said to each other, we're like, okay, we probably aren't at the point where we can survive off of our YouTube income. But the only thing that's going to keep us alive is choosing between one of these. Either we quit the YouTube thing or we quit our jobs. What do you want to do? And we both decided, we're like, well, we haven't given this a shot yet. Let's give YouTube a shot.
I mean, you're young, Yeah. Like now's the time.
Yeah.
And y'all made the perfect decision. And there comes a point like if you ain't wanting to eat bologna sandwiches for a little while and like really struggle and build your way up, then you don't even need to, like, people outside looking in say, oh, you got a fun job. Like, yeah, it's fun, but also you don't see the 70 other hours this week. You know what I mean? It's like, this is a blessed life. It's a fun life, but it's one that if you don't have thick skin, if you can't sit there and do things for forever with no kind of feedback, no kind of praise, no kind of anything, then you just don't even need to try it. So,
right. Yeah. It really is. It's the hardest job I've ever had in my life. I'll say that. And I've worked at a lot of different, not only the prison, I've done customer service, I've done retail, I've done food service, catering, and I've done for a week UPS.
Oh Lord, yeah, dude, that scares me. That's why it has to work, because I'm not employable anymore.
Yeah,
like I'm not employable.
Yeah, and that was the UPS thing was funny. I was a driver's helper for 2 days, but they didn't have enough hours. They were only working me 45 minutes a day.
Oh,
and
nice.
I was like, I need to find a different job, or else I'm going to starve.
Like my check was $17.
Exactly.
We got
it was. So,
which I felt bad because I gave that recommendation to Ryan. I was like, because I had done that for like 10 years. A driver helper, and I was like, "Oh, it's a great gig." And then Ryan tells me about it. I'm like, "Man, like, sorry, because that's totally not the experience I've had."
Was it during the holidays?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
seasonal thing.
Yeah,
but and all the jobs that I've worked in my life, nothing has ever been as difficult as creating content, especially for YouTube. There's something specifically difficult about growing a YouTube channel, because even like our Facebook page, we just posted clips of our episodes, and we've done daily clips. Two times a day, it'll post a clip from a little snippet of one of our full-length episodes. And we went from, I think, 17,000 Facebook followers to we're almost to 200,000 now in a matter of 6 months.
Heck yeah.
And but YouTube, it took us 14 years to get 100,000.
And so people know YouTube or Facebook pays the best.
Yes,
I found.
Does, yeah.
But, and it's, I'm not balling out of control. It's basically like I make a good salary for a West Virginian and I can pay my bills. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much where I'm at. Now, my buddy Dalton is a whole, so there's an influencer up north, and his name's Dalton, and he has a wife named Sako. They've been doing this like 4 years now. He's in the top tier. Like he made like 70 grand this month.
Yeah.
Just on Facebook. Like, I want people to know that's not typical.
No.
And he worked hard to get there. But so y'all know, like, we are, or essentially, as far as my life goes, I'm very comfortable and appreciative, but it's essentially like a middle class good job, and I'm very grateful for it. But
Dalton doesn't know me, but I know Dalton because I worked out at Planet Fitness in Parkersburg, and I would see him in there all the time.
Oh, he's playing. I figured he would be lunk alarm all day. He wouldn't be able to do it. Nah, yeah. Well, that's cool. Small world, and he's super nice, dude. They're going through a lot right now, but anyway, that's one thing too, is being in the public. How have you noticed a difference in between when you're following built between, before, when we could just kind of walk around, and I mean, like, we're not Jay-Z and Beyonce walking around, but like if I go out somewhere in my 5 mile radius, like I'm going to see somebody that knows me, which is really flattering. Have you ran into like situations like that, or?
Luckily, the paranormal and YouTube is such a large niche, and there's so many different people that create content that it's not like a situation where we'll go out and we have people mob us or anything. But there is instances where it usually happens like once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks. We'll go somewhere and someone will see us in the store, or we'll in Sheetz was one of the weirdest places. So I was just at the checkout at Sheetz, and someone was like, "Ryan from Paranormal Quest," and I was like, "Yeah, hi, how are you?" And so,
random like every concert we go to.
Yeah, every concert we go to. Yeah, which was really embarrassing. We went to a Post Malone concert, and I got way too intoxicated, and the subscriber had to offer me water.
Nice.
Which was, I have since quit drinking. I don't drink anymore. And that was a huge part of it, because I blacked out at a Post Malone concert, and I'm like, nope, never again.
But what a story for them.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I gave Ryan water when he was like throwing up everywhere. It was crazy. Exactly. Crazy story.
Shout out to you guys. I can't remember your names because I was blackout drunk, but shout out to you guys.
See, that's my, like, a majority, because we have kind of different things that we've built. A majority of the people that watch what I do, like, we do a lot of West Virginia stuff, so it's mainly right here. And I've kind of figured, this is why I wanted to do this, but like, you're following, it's more worldwide and stuff that people from everywhere could relate to. And that's one thing I've struggled with, is figuring out like how can I keep the core mission, which is showing off Appalachia, there, but also build it into something else of maybe having like a team member one day, maybe being able to employ people, So that's kind of what I struggle with it's because it's kind of niched out to just this region.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but that's not, it's a large region of the country. So you have a huge section to work with. And, that's the thing. If you keep it about the people and about the places and about the stories, and it'll grow, because people, I mean, now more than ever, people are fascinated with Appalachia.
Sure.
Now it's like become its own hashtag, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't remember, like 10 years ago, nobody did hashtag Appalachia, or nobody was like, my terrifying night in the Appalachian Mountains. People would be like, okay.
And so it's typically like they take some shots when they come in.
Yeah.
But they're like, I did everything I wasn't supposed to do in the Appalachian Hills. And it's like they're going into National Geographic, like a whole new, I'm like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal. I grew up in McDowell County. Let's go.
Yeah.
But they can do them. But yeah, you're right. And that's what I want to do. Like, I want to show off this place. And I've only really been able to cover heavy West Virginia. Like all these, there's 13 states, and all of them have their own stories. And I just haven't had the time to kind of spread out and do those things. So that's kind of the goal, is like, go to Eastern Kentucky, go to Western Virginia, go to Northern Tennessee, like kind of branching out like that.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you go to Kentucky, like the Maysville area, look up Blue Collar Paranormal, because he's got a lot of cool places you could check out. His name's Marshall.
Sweet.
So if you can find him on Facebook and stuff through his Facebook page, but he's got a lot of cool locations in Kentucky and the Maysville area. So definitely check his stuff out.
Heck yeah. Your editing style. So did you start of like, well, I got to give a 30-second really hyped intro, and then we'll do like, a title screen, and then we'll go into the, like, how did you develop your format?
It's interesting because I don't know that it was even a conscious development of the format, because when we first started doing Paranormal Quest, it was just how it was shot is how I edited. I was very bad at it. I've taught myself how to edit. I mean, granted, I did go to Point Park University and I majored in cinema production.
Oh, wow.
And I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in cinema production from Point Park University. And so I did learn, but that was mostly narrative filmmaking that I was learning about there. I did take one documentary class. Everything else I taught myself about the format and how to put everything together. And it evolved over the years. And if you have about 500 or 600 hours to sit and watch all of our videos in order, you can see the evolution of how the style kind of came about. But it really just started with telling the story, and how we filmed it is how I edited it. And then as we continued along, I thought, building tension, building excitement for what's to come. And I just kind of tweaked things here and there. And then it just evolved piece by piece into what it is today. So
I love that you edit your own videos, because I think, obviously to scale it would be a little simpler to bring someone else in, but editing is so important for me and fun for me and enjoyable, because a lot of people see it as monotonous, but I see it as like, I literally get to show you exactly how I felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and what a blessing that is. But it does take so long. I want to do longer episodes more often, and I just can't free the schedule up to do it. And that's what I'm struggling with, is like, I want to get more toward a quality over quantity type mindset.
Right. For sure.
I think in the end, having 1,000 really quality videos in your library is going to be so more impactful than 8,000 okay ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the most, I don't want to say the bad part about society nowadays, but that really is. It's just, it's a rush to who can make the most content in the shortest amount of time. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much about focusing on telling the story in an intelligent and truthful way. And I love that about editing. That's why for the longest time, I had such a hard time giving up control, even for just one video when we were traveling and stuff. And eventually, our friend Connor, one of our best friends, he has a YouTube channel called Paranormal Encounters, which we've worked with many times over the years. But it took me, I want to say 11, 12 years for me to be comfortable enough to say, hey, Connor, would you be comfortable with editing this video for me? Because we have 5 more investigations this week, And so, but it was something I was very defensive of for the longest time, was the idea that I give up control to someone else and that someone else shapes the story and not me.
Yeah.
And so while I would complain and bitch moan about how little time I had and how tired I was and how exhausted I was, someone would say, okay, well, you want me to edit this one? I would say, absolutely not. You know, it was like, it was a self-inflicted wound, you know?
Well, and, you know, kind of on a side note to add to what you're saying and kind of to add to what you said a little while ago about, like, you know, the editing and the production for each investigation is like a habitual process. And like Ryan is so immersed in the process. This is just a very kind of a simple example here recently. Couple months ago, our recent investigation at one of our favorite locations, a place called Crescent up in Pennsylvania. It's an old sanatorium. Then it was a state hospital. Then it was a medium security prison known as SCI Crescent.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were there a couple months ago, and, you know, I can always tell, like, Ryan, I mean, yes, he's in investigating mode, but he's like also like the director is on his shoulder. So he knows, like, you know, we're planning 3 sessions tonight, or, you know, for an example. And I can always tell, like, Ryan already has it figured out, like, okay, I'm going to put this here. And then we, of course, naturally hope for the best in each session. Hopefully, you know, we get some interesting, you know, activity. But excuse me, Ryan and I, it was near the end of, because it was a 2-night, near the end of night 1, I believe it was. And we were in this one building, the J unit, which was a more modern housing unit. It was a pod. And we were about to, after that, finish up the night in a area called the RHU restricted housing unit, which is kind of like solitary in a way. And so we go into J building. You're in the vestibule. There's door A, door B for A unit, B unit. And Ryan's like, because the door to B unit was standing wide open. He's like, well, so where should we go? You think B or A? I was like, well, let's see what's behind door A. So we went in to the A unit. And, you know, I'm filming. Ryan's getting ready to, you know, kind of do an introduction to this particular session. He's like, all right, so we're in the RHU and, you know, and all that. And I was like, RHU. And he's like, damn it, sorry. And, you know, and it's like, so he started over. He's like, all right, so we're we're in J building. We're in B unit. And like a second later, I started laughing. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to start you again, but we're in J building A unit.
Okay.
You know, because I could just tell, like, Ryan's already thinking about, you know, he's dropped into the process.
Sure.
You know, and it, like you said, it's a habitual, it's just by nature.
Yeah. And I will say, of course, there's certain aspects of it that come together when I'm in front of the computer. But as far as the layout of the way that the video is going to be put together, I have it edited in my mind before I even leave the location.
Sure, yeah.
You know, so as I'm shooting it, it's like I don't even have anything written down, but I know exactly when we need to shoot something, how we need to shoot it so that it flows together and becomes the video that I have imagined in my brain. And so that's why sometimes Dave will get, or anybody will get frustrated with me because they're like, would you just like change up your plan here? Because this is going to work better. I'm like, but and then, you know, so it can be a blessing and a curse, but you know, when you do it 600 times over the past 16 years, putting together these 2-hour long documentaries, it's like in your brain, you already have it finished before you leave the location.
Sure. Well, and you need everybody, but I'll just, like, you couldn't have done this without you and that mindset. Like, I could just hear it. And I haven't met Dave, and I'm sure I know Dave's great, but I'm just saying, like, there has to be this almost unhealthy drive. Like, I'm serious. Like, it's people just think like, oh, I'll make some videos, I'll shoot it. Like, it's really borderline unhealthy if you don't figure it out. Like, and I see you work out. Like, there's things we have to do to not go insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I don't work out at least 3 times a week, I start to have panic attacks. You know, so
it's a lot.
It is. Yeah, there's so much in my brain at all times, and I just have to find a way to release it. But I would say, I mean, I feel like Paranormal Quest could be a thing without me. It just wouldn't be the same, so to speak. Like, it would be a different thing. It would be in like, if Jason did it, it would be in his vision, you know, or if Dave edited it, it would be in his vision. And I think that was the hardest part of me to give up control in the beginning, because I was like, oh man, I have this vision for this and I want to create something cool.
Well, someone's got to be psychotic.
Yeah,
I don't care who it is, somebody does. Because I tried a little thing before this, and I was the only psychotic one in the bunch, and it didn't work. So You need a lot of elements, but I'm thankful that y'all were able to put this together. So to clarify, y'all don't fake stuff.
No.
Lord no, son.
Never have. And in fact, that's one of the things that people like us for, is because we'll go and debunk our own evidence, even if it completely undercuts the excitement of the video. Like with the College Hill Hospital door closing on its own, it would have been so easy for me to just take the audio out of that clip when the wind picked up and it sounded like a jet engine taking off, and then just say, look, the door closed, and then we move on, and suddenly we have people all over the internet talking about how we caught a door closing on its own. But that would be counterproductive to the reason that we're doing this. Is the whole reason behind Paranormal Quest was it's for us to find answers for our own experiences we had when we were younger and to capture it on video.
Sure.
So what good does it do to fake the activity or the evidence when it's in the end for us anyway?
Yeah.
We're sharing it with our audience, but in the end, at the end of the day, it's for us.
Plus that's lame.
Right.
That's the fake stuff.
Yeah, I know.
You just run around and like, whoo, like, I mean, I know there's people that have probably built a good living doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Just find you a Cody and Satori and let them do it for you. I'm kidding. That was a shot. I'm sorry. but and Sam and Colby, to their credit, like, they don't want to fake stuff either. They made a response. Y'all go down that rabbit hole. It's important because the paranormal community, once you lose your integrity, it's gone forever.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It just is.
And you know, and the paranormal community is already kind of, you know, starting on the bad foot of the scientific community anyway.
Sure.
So it's like, you know, true investigators, researchers who maintain that integrity of the investigation, the research, who take the community seriously. You know, we're kind of like, yeah, no, I mean, if you're going to do that, like, we don't want you in the community. You know, it's like, you know, it's the foundation of what paranormal investigation should be, you know, and even scientific method and everything, and debunking, and
you are kind of cast out. Like, if you actively do stuff that is not, you know, real. I mean, you are kind of cast out. I've noticed, and I'm just very lightly. Basically, I run around and tell jokes. If y'all ever want some idiot to join, I would love to just tag along and collaborate. And just, you know, you tell me where to show up. But that's basically my prerogative. Is like, I just want to have fun, tell jokes, and enjoy this, and see if I feel anything crazy, you know.
And there's a place for that in the paranormal field too, because it's like,
Sure.
you know, the thing that we always said is just because we're trying to capture serious evidence doesn't mean we have to be serious all the time.
Sure.
And in the beginning, that was kind of a huge shift for us, a monumental shift for us in the way that we behaved on camera. In the beginning, it was like, we're serious all the time.
Yeah.
We don't ever joke. We don't ever laugh. But as we found, as the years went on, we're like, well, that really doesn't, it's really not entertaining. So yeah, we're presenting evidence to people, but nobody's entertained by our stoic nature, you know?
Yeah.
So we started including the things that happened that are lighthearted and fun. Like last time we were at Crescent, Jason got attacked by a bat and he was hiding in a closet, peeking out the door, trying not to get hit by the bat. And then he ended up having to crawl out of the building.
Nice.
Like stuff like that. Because it is like the process of investigating the paranormal can be incredibly boring, but it can also be incredibly fun, completely separate from the paranormal. It can be a blast to just, when you run into things inside these old abandoned buildings, and sometimes there's some comical moments, and 15 years ago, I would have cut it out of the video if something like that happened.
Sure, yeah.
But nowadays, I love to keep it in and share that experience with people because it shows that we're human.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. People don't want to watch statues with cameras. They want to watch humans.
Exactly.
And it's also therapeutic to have, you know, bringing like levity to an episode in that way. Cause, you know, not always, but, you know, a lot of the places we film and the guys film at, it's dark. I mean, not, you know, of course, physically, but I mean, the history is dark. You know, I mean, it's really some brutal stuff, sad stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so to be able to, you know, at least tastefully when we can, you know, bring that levity and bring that humor, it kind of helps to, you know, everyone take a breath, you know, and then kind of reset, you know, and, you know, because it can be heavy. It can be
sure pretty
emotional, you know.
Definitely. You know, and I've heard a bunch of times ghosts like to laugh too. You know?
For sure.
So that's what I do want to so I don't know if y'all watch Watcher, but they do a thing that's real fun, which y'all may have done. I don't know. But they give each other dares to go off and do solo. And it's just that kind of format is so fun. I don't know but I just watch all these things and I'm like, oh, that would be awesome to just run around. Because we did one at Trans-Allegheny. It's just so overly saturated that like, I don't even think it's broke 1,000 views yet. But even still, I had such a good experience there. But there's a code. Is there a certain thing you started doing where you noticed a hockey stick moment, or did it just build over time to where like, all right, well, we average this many views if I follow this playbook?
Yeah, and I feel like for us, it was the consistency. When we started uploading, as much damage as it did to my brain, when we started uploading every single week, a new video every week, things started to take off. So with YouTube, the game is more about consistency than it is with quality. Because you can have the most raw videos, but if you put out a video every 3 days or every week, you're going to grow exponentially more than if you sit and edit a video for a month and then release it.
Makes sense.
And don't have anything in between. So it was a very, very difficult balancing act for us. And that balancing act was the most damaging, was creating something that looked professional, but doing it every 7 days on, with no end for 7 years straight.
Sure.
With no end, every week, every 7 days, a new hour to 2 hour long documentary had to come out and it had to look professional. Yeah. And that was the most damaging part of it, was trying to keep the consistency with the quality. And so what we've decided to do is not scale the quality back, but make it feel a bit more raw. There's still cinematics to it, but don't do as much cinematics as I used to do. Make the cinematics a fun little cherry on top instead of the entirety of the project.
Sure.
And then make the people in the video, in the investigation, make them the centerpiece and the highlight, so that people can fall in love with the stories and the personalities. And when you start realizing, or when you start to notice that your audience has fallen in love with you more than your videos, that's when I think you realize that, this is going to become a lot easier.
Heck yeah. No, that's a good way to put it. You can overproduce stuff easily. Yeah. So
for sure. Yeah. When the production outshines the stories that you're trying to tell, it's time to scale back the production.
Yeah. It's like, I probably used 3,000 sound effects. We can do 2,000.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. Yeah. That's all we need. Well, cool, y'all. Well, passing 2 hours here, I'm going to ask you a question I like to always ask, just to get everyone's opinion on for these type of episodes. But what happens when we die? Who wants to go first? Did you answer this last time? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I don't think so.
I don't think I asked you that. It's typically a paranormal episode, but
yeah,
I'm curious.
Isn't that the greatest question of all time? I mean, and like Ryan kind of said earlier, is like, we got into this to find answers for our own experiences, and exactly, it's like I've always told people, I'm just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And to be completely honest, after basically about 20, you might as well say going on 20 years investigating, I feel like, yes, I feel like I've gotten some answers, but I almost have more questions after all these years. I definitely don't have I have, ideas, but they're far from concrete, and that's a really weird spiral of a rabbit hole.
Well, nothing's concrete. I want to clarify, because technically none of us know, but we can have faith, and we get a range of answers. Like, I love when I hear people's faith and different beliefs there come into play. I like hearing scientific explanations. There's no wrong answer really to me.
Right.
Other than if it's like, well, you're in purgatory forever and you're in chains and there's no levity your entire existence for forever. I don't want to hear that. Mm-hmm. But everything else is pretty good.
Yeah.
so
anyway. I don't know if, I don't know how it happens. I heard someone once describe, the paranormal as somehow, some way, sometimes it happens. And when it does happen, the only thing that I can come up with that I'm thinking maybe hopefully one day science can explain it better is maybe going to be the doorway to that explanation. I'm thinking is maybe going to be in like quantum physics, like string theory, something like multiple dimensions. That's just a very tentative kind of blasé response that I usually have.
Just the science of black holes terrifies me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, Really? We just are floating around in space and we're just like, oh man, my latte is so cold. This sucks. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we're hurling through infinity. There's all kinds of this insanity. There's stars blowing up everywhere in the universe. Like, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm. It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't have any particular, for me, I'm hate to be lame as well with my answer, because I've not really settled on a particular explanation as to what I think happens after we die. I can tell you what I think hope happens. And I think what I hope happens is that even if my soul or my consciousness doesn't live on, I hope I can live on through the people that I know and the people that I love who tell stories about me, who are able to recall and smile on the good times and cry about the bad times. And I have had a strong emphasis recently on trying to shift my perspective, because perspective really does shape your life. And I've been so obsessed with content for so long, almost 10 years at this point. I've let it take over my life and kept me from my family, kept me from, I missed the first 5 years of my niece's life pretty much. And it really put into perspective. There's times that you don't get back. And while I love what I do and I love what we get to do, I've really had to have a perspective shift recently, because I realize that if nobody ever actually knows me, then I can't live on. You know, if people don't remember the things that I joked about, or how my smile sounded, or the advice that I gave to them, then I am already dead. So I feel like when I die, if I can have a few people have some fond memories of me, I feel like that's the most important thing.
That's a good answer. I'll say too, because I've thought about that a lot too, is I think that a lot of people in my life are still connected with me, but through the content. And because of that, that fulfills their need to feel connected with me.
Mm-hmm.
But me, I feel more isolated, because I don't have those personal conversations anymore. And I kind of take it in a different way of like, why don't they love me anymore? But they actually do. They just get their fill with all this stuff I'm spewing on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing too, is it's like people don't realize that because they watch you and they get the fulfillment, they hear you talk, they hear your stories on camera, and they don't realize how lonely being a content creator can be sometimes when you're sitting in front of the computer 16 hours a day, not speaking a single word to anybody, just with headphones on your ears, preparing a video that people will watch in a few days, you know.
For validation that we need to fill the void inside our forever soul.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's conversations I've had with my therapist, and it's like, I have one of the complexes that I have is one of my biggest fears is making people that I love and the people that love me, making them feeling like I didn't accomplish anything, that I'm a failure, that people looking at me like I didn't do anything that was worthwhile. And so I have constantly pushed myself to try and live up to people's expectations. And in the end, they were my expectations all along. Nobody ever had any expectations for me.
Yeah. I know. I thought about this a lot too. I know exactly why I do this. And it's disapproval from my father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've had such a broken relationship. And I think that I countered that by being so overly out there of like, and I always want to be the most positive and the most energetic and the most vocal about anything I'm doing. And I think I've done that in many ways. And I think this is the outlet where I feel like, well, this is the direction that I can finally make him happy, but it's never going to happen. And there was a long time I spent of like anger. And now it's kind of turned toward productivity and anxiety of like, I'm not angry at him anymore. He's just a non-entity, but he still is in my subconscious from trying to seek approval from, look at what I've done.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's still nowhere. I'm never happy though. Yeah, pays the bills, all that. I'm very grateful for it. I'm very blessed for it. But I think like eventually you got to be okay with not feeling fulfilled, if that makes sense. You got to be okay with just having a schedule and doing what you love, but not overly doing it to where it drives you crazy.
Yep. Oh, for sure. And yeah, and then you throw ADHD into the mix with me, and it's like, I'm constantly chasing that dopamine fix.
Oh, yeah. It's bad.
It's bad. And to the point where the higher the dopamine fix you get, the higher the next one has to be. And so you keep trying to push yourself harder and harder. And yeah, that was the biggest thing. If I had to say, it would be to have people remember me for who I was more than what I did.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that's real. That is those, like, for the experience of being there is more important.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Than this thing you create. The thing you create is great and it pays the bills. It helps you keep on having these experiences. But looking around at like freaking 2:30 in the morning with a bunch of these other psychos, and you're trying to like conjure the devil in this random basement.
Yeah.
Like that's the meaningful part of it. It's not, I mean, we do this so we can remember it and like, oh yeah, that was a cool transition, But the meaningful part is like the story you have of the time where you all, like we just talked about a bunch of them. That's the meaningful part. And we isolate our close family because we can't make a video out of it. But it's BS. It's like, no, I just want to eat breakfast with my freaking kid and find out how volleyball practice was.
Yeah.
Stop, brain. Be in the moment. So I get it, man.
It was I had to come to terms with the fact that I was spending so much time trying to tell the story of our lives and what we do with our paranormal investigations that I was forgetting to live my life.
Yeah.
And it's like, I needed to take a step back, and I'm still actively working on it. I have, for lack of a better word, relapses of it where I get really, really obsessively focused on editing or what for a period of time, but I'm trying my best to live life as opposed to spending my life trying to tell the story about things that happened in the past.
Yeah. When we talk to ourselves in the cadence of our videos, it's a problem. Because I do that all the time. I'm like, all right, Creepalachia, calm down in there. Like, just think. Just have some normal thought. But yeah, man, it's so relatable because we still enjoy it. Like, I love sitting down and crafting this thing thousands of videos later. Because I did this professionally and started a business before Creepalachia. Creepalachia is the fun part of my life of like, now I get to do this for why I got into filmmaking. But still, like I take it to the freaking max.
Yep.
Just
we don't listen to our own limitations.
No. Well, I love it, man. I'm glad to meet you now, and I hope we collaborate a lot more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very, very relatable conversation. And obviously, I'm going to tag you in the episode, but let people know where they can go to check out Paranormal Quest. Where all are you all at? Yeah, I mean, Paranormal Quest is first and foremost a YouTube channel. So if you want to search up Paranormal Quest on YouTube, we're on the road to 300,000 subscribers. We're trying to get there by 2027. So fingers crossed. But yeah, you can find us also on Facebook and on Instagram and even on TikTok. We have an account that we are not so religious about posting to, but it happens every now and again. So pretty much any social media, and hopefully MySpace soon. Heck yeah. Oh, dude, I'm going to be first to market on the new MySpace. There you go. No doubt. Yep. So yeah. And for sure, man, thank you so much for having us on. This was a lot of fun. And we're going to have to, not only am I going to have to come back, and Jason, I'm sure will want to come back, but we got to get you on an investigation and find a location where we all can, tag team and see what we can capture. Cause heck yeah. Yeah. Appalachia has so much history. I would love to join and anytime, just tell me where to go. I'll be there. But yeah, everyone out there, thank you for listening to this 2-hour and 10-minute conversation, fellas. Ooh, we did it. This was pure Halloween excitement. I'm gonna listen to this probably 10 times, but be sure to like this video, subscribe to Creepalachia on YouTube if you haven't, and if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leave a review. It'll really help the show be found. And we are on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and we are on Patreon now, releasing episodes early, just like we did this one. If you want to get your name in the credits, join. Less than 2 energy drinks a month. But everyone else, always remember, ghosts are real, and long live Appalachia.